Welcome back. So now taking the stage is Mitchell Baker, Chairperson at Mozilla. She'll be talking about how the web influences our online experience and how openness and participation can shape tomorrow's web so that users have individual choice and that there's innovation. So please welcome Mitchell Baker.
Get out of here. Well, let's see if this, there we go. First, it's really great to be here, and it's an honor to be among a group of people who are interested in what the internet builds, what online life is, and the combination of technology and society. So thank you very much. It's clear that the internet is about scale and that it's massive and that the amount of data and information that's traveling through the world is exploding. It's clear that many players will be involved in the internet, that there'll be government involvement, commercial involvement. Some of it will be very exciting. Some of it might be a little bit disturbing. But one of the pieces that isn't so clear is where's the role of the individual in a massive network like the internet? How do we build individuality, individual control, and respect for the individual into the fabric of the internet? And that is what Mozilla is all about. You know, we're best known, of course, for Firefox and for building a browser. Firefox is the first tool towards building individuality and individual control into the internet. We do that, obviously, with technology and with product. We do this by competing in the market, by building products that we can put in front of people that make the values that we care about real. And so we're best known for Firefox, but that is the tool for expressing a set of goals that are much bigger. And so what you see here is an actual billboard. We have traditionally been very cautious about talking about Mozilla, about talking about anything other than the product. We're a little wary of doing things that look or feel like advertising. But recently we've decided that being more direct about product as a tool towards certain goals is important. Because what we're doing is a little bit different. On the one hand, we're trying to have our software products look and feel as good or better than commercial products. And on the other hand, we're using those products to advance the goal of individuality, public benefit, and social good. And so we've started, this is our first effort to try and describe this. This particular billboard, and there's a few others, is highly tailored currently for the San Francisco area. You can see it's in the language of Silicon Valley. But we hope that if this is successful and it starts to get the idea of technology and product in service of individuality and public benefit, that we can tailor it and use it in other places in the world. So if you see any of these, or I have a couple here, and you have ideas about what makes sense, how to express these ideas in different words and different languages, we'd love to hear them. Now, as we've used Firefox as a tool, the early tool for individuality and control, it's sometimes easy to forget how much we were lacking any individual choice or option or innovation in the browser space. So we chose the browser for two reasons. One is because it's the piece of software that you and I and human beings touch. And the second reason is it was the best point of leverage to be able to bring choice and individual control into the internet experience. And so I have here some examples of pop-up ads from, say, pre-Firefox era, in an era where without choice and without options, the online experience was getting worse, filled with malware and pop-up ads and the sense of being out of control of one's experience. So this is something that we've managed to make a big change with, first in Firefox and then in other browsers as well. But of course today, some of the things that we're concerned about are not so much pop-up ads, but what happens behind the scenes. What happens with the data that we create and that others create about us? Increasingly, the internet is about the movement of data. We may intend some of it, we may not even know about some of it. But in between applications and websites, data moves. And so the modern equivalent of pop-up ads we can see in privacy and privacy principles. Now, we are trying to build a set of products and offerings that respect privacy and allow each one of us to have the richness of the web. So there's a view of privacy which is completely defensive, which says I don't want anything. I want to shut all the doors and lock everything out. I don't want customization. I don't want personalization. And we expect to make that available to users. But many of us want some combination. I like customization. I want an experience that reflects me, but I still want to be in control, have some way to influence what happens to the data around me. And if application A is talking to app B and it's sharing a bunch of intimate data about me, I'd like to know about that. And so this is our set of privacy principles that we're working to build into our products and into our relationships and services. This is, we've been working on these principles for quite a while. We use them already, both in Firefox and our product offerings and in our services and back end. This is actually quite new, getting it all in one poster. I think it's in the last day or two, so it's the first time we've had this combined in a way that we can see it. But these are the kinds of ideas that we're trying to build across our product offerings and hopefully be an example or at least a test case for other products in the industry about how to get the real richness that's exciting about the internet combined with some personal control. And so, for example, no surprises. Well, maybe some of us here really want highly customized experiences or highly customized ads. And so we're willing to have some data about us live someplace else or travel around. Some people are very comfortable with that. That's fine. For those people who aren't, it shouldn't be a surprise. And so we're working through these set of principles. We try and build them in our product. It's a work in progress. As the internet changes and new capabilities change, there's always questions about, well, what is a sensible setting? What is the right thing to do? How do we get the best possible mixture? And how do we make it possible for more people to understand their options? So these will guide our actions. If you've got thoughts about the principles or about how they're applied or how they appear in our product, we'd love to hear them. It's an area where it's difficult, maybe impossible to be perfect. And so we continue to both do our best, get input, and to try to make these things more real in our products. Now, we know something about doing this in browsers. We've been doing that for a while. But of course, you know, the internet and the web is changing. Browser used to be a desktop device. Today, of course, we have phones. You know, in the future, the internet or internet connectivity will appear everywhere. Thus, the refrigerator and the car. And we at Mozilla are trying to find ways so that wherever that connectivity appears, there's a place for me, for a human being. And so that's why you see the Firefox logo on these different devices. It's not that we're focused on Firefox market share or Firefox winning on the refrigerator market or Firefox in my car. The focus is, where am I? If information about me is traveling among these devices, and if I get into my car and I expect my car computer to have information about me, and then I get out of my car and I have my phone or whatever it is, where's the control point? Amongst this massive scale and the immense network, how is it that a human being actually has a dashboard or knobs or dials or some place to interact that lets me be involved? And so that's what the Firefox logo represents in this case, is a leverage point where we have experience and some assets to put each one of us in control. And of course today, not only are there more devices, but we're living in an app world. Apps have turned out to be pretty exciting. I think of them as a lightweight way to access the web, or a new form factor for the web. And that's an exciting piece. Today, though, our current view of apps is highly influenced by the Apple model of apps, no surprise. But that's a model that is a very closed, integrated system, very centralized, certainly uses the network of the internet, but doesn't access many of the capabilities of the web that have made it explosive. And so we have a different view of apps, and that's apps that really are of the web, meaning they're built using web technologies. They're run in a, call it a browser environment. Could be a full browser if you're used to it, or if you think of a browser with no UI, but the same set of underlying technology. And what that allows is applications to run across devices and across platforms. Run on your laptop, run on your phone, run on the iOS platform, run across new platforms as they develop. So that allows us to have this lightweight way of interacting with a single function on the web, plus the great connectivity, cross-platform possibilities of the web. And that, in turn, allows me to have an experience that reflects what I'm interested in across multiple devices. Now, certainly on the technology side, we know how to do this. We've been working on an architecture for doing this for some months now, and we have a pretty clear idea. I've put up here a few sample apps. Many of these are games. These are apps which can be managed through a browser. That means found, installed, bought, managed, and moved among devices. So the apps that you see here could be found in a store. They could be found in multiple stores. They could be found on a website. So you go to a website, and that website would be able to advertise and say, hey, I have an app, download it here. Go to this store if you prefer to get it there or to get recommendations there. Once you've got it, be able to move it and share it among devices, so that you may have devices that are not of the same platform, just like we use in accessing the web with desktop devices. It doesn't matter the operating system. You know, I can get the same app and the same information behind it, the same overall experience. And so these are apps here, a number of games that demonstrate that. And we have some workshops tomorrow, and we can talk more about apps. We can show some of the things, show kind of what we're thinking about in more detail about how, you know, each one of us can actually have the experience that we want across different devices. And this is a picture of some of those same apps on an iPad, because we're asked quite regularly, well, that's nice, but what about the Apple operating system? And so with a true web app, of course, you can use it across devices. Now, this one doesn't run in Firefox, right? Apple claims it's illegal for us to put Firefox on an iPhone, so we don't. But the critical point is that's what the web is about. And so with the app ecosystem that we're working on, you can have the same apps and, as I say, same data storage, same management system. And so if you're interested, these show up in the labs area of Mozilla, or come to some of our workshops or coffee hour tomorrow, and we can go through more details. Now, on the app world, actually having the app and the technology is one piece of it. And I think once you start to see what it looks and feels like to be able to find an app wherever, install it, manage it nicely, have it appear across devices, begin to get a sense of what's really possible. and how early we are in the internet, and how apps are exciting and they're a new way of approaching it, and we'll find lots of other ways to access the internet in the future. And that makes the need for cross-platform ease really important. On top of the technology, there are a bunch of other issues or traits that makes apps interesting. Some of those we've listed here. Like, as a developer, how do you make an app? How do people find it? What tools are available? Do I host it? Does it live on my website? Does it live in a store? If it's a web app, do I want some centralized Mozilla directory? Do I not? How do I get paid? What is the monetization possibilities? And so these are areas of an open app ecosystem that we're in the process of figuring out now. And so we're extremely interested in the thinking of this set of people, of each of you, and what these could look like and what they should look like. We have a model with Apple. Google has a sort of related but slightly different model, and we're starting to see app stores pop up everywhere. We're not interested in making a Mozilla app store. We're interested in building an ecosystem for web apps that may or may not have a centralized directory, but allows the kind of innovation and choice that the web has brought us. So if it's important to have a centralized directory, Mozilla or otherwise, then we'll do the things that are necessary for that. At the same time, having the ability for each developer to make a bunch of decisions for him or herself is what has made the web powerful. So any thoughts that you have on this, we're really quite interested in. Again, our workshops tomorrow are a good place to talk about those things. If you're busy tomorrow, then Mozilla Labs online would be the place to look. Now, at Mozilla, we've focused most of our energy to date on building core technology, the underlying infrastructure. Now, much as I love Firefox, it's a piece of infrastructure in the system. And recently, in the last year and a half, we've begun to expand and to say, well, we know that openness is important. We know that individuality is important. Our ultimate goal is having human beings in charge of our experience. So what are ways in which we can promote openness and individual engagement and empowerment that aren't all about building Firefox? Because exciting though it is for some, building Firefox is not for everyone. And so these efforts are crystallized in a program we call Drumbeat. And the goal of Drumbeat is to say, how can we take the ideas of openness and innovation and community and empowerment and open technologies and use those to bring beneficial traits to other parts of life? And so our initial focus last year was in the education world, how to combine education and open source technologies. So we have focused on that. We also have a set of other projects. These vary from working with educational organizations to some technology projects related to using audio and video on the web, to helping children actually learn to do something beyond consuming. It's very clear that increasingly younger kids are adept at consuming. But one thing current platforms aren't teaching as well is how to actually create. And so, for example, the Hackosaurus project that you see there is about fun and interesting ways for people to learn to create. That, oh, here's a website or here's a page, it's about me, but I want it to look and feel differently. Well, on the web, 5-10 years ago, that was really easy to do. In today's more consumptive environments, we're not teaching that as much. So we have a set of projects focusing on that. And I want to talk about two of these Drumbeat projects in a little bit more detail, and then we'll have some questions. One of these is universal subtitles. This is not a project originally started by Mozilla, and at its core, it's not hosted in Mozilla, but it's a project through Drumbeat that we work with actively and that we support in many different ways. It's not necessary for Mozilla to be the center. In fact, success for us is having more and more people doing things that reflect individual empowerment, international activities, and community work. Universal Subtitles is, as the name suggests, a way for crowdsourcing subtitles to news. Well, to anything really, to any video. In this case, it's news. And the system is also extremely distributed and decentralized and open. It doesn't matter where you host your video. You can choose where to host the subtitles. You can have it hosted by the Universal Subtitles folks. You can do your own. You can build your own community of people who are subtitling the things that you care about. You can mix and match among these in the way that the web allows. And so here we have a pretty obvious example of Universal Subtitles as it appeared. And the great thing about the web and about being open is that, of course, these just appear. Both the guy who runs the Universal Subtitles project and we look up one day, you know, and Alive in Egypt has found it, and they've implemented it, and they've used it. And so we're starting to see more and more of these occur because it's so clear that the information that each of us needs to have to be a good online citizen and to have fun and to understand the world will be in multiple languages. And as each one of us is able to actually contribute to some translation, content becomes more and more available. And the second program that I wanted to talk about in a little more detail is a partnership between the Knight Foundation and Mozilla. The Knight Foundation is a U.S. grant-making organization that has an intense focus on journalism and is run by a very forward-looking person who really understands how important open is, and the changes in journalism would be helped by deeper understanding and involvement with technologies of openness. And so we have a partner arrangement, which is it's a program for both identifying ways in which open technologies can be useful in news and journalism, doing design challenges. So you're a journalist, what would it be really useful? What tools would make data visualization really useful? You want to write articles that have a lot of data or that's easy to visualize. What kind of stuff would make that useful? What kind of audio-video tools, or what would be a good news app that really makes use of the combination of data and video information that's now possible on the web? And then it involves some contests and some selecting of journalists and of fellows, and placing those fellows in journalistic organizations to see if we can help bring a deeper understanding of open technologies into those organizations. And then, of course, the hope is that better understanding of the technology makes it easier to think about new business models that fit in with the current web today. And so we're fortunate. Knight has deep relationships with journalists to be able to work with them, and you can see our list of partners there. These are the first 5 set of people who we know will have a fellow placed in their organization and spend 6, 8, or 9, or 10 months working with that organization. And these are also the groups that will help us identify the fellows and figure out what are the right kinds of technology challenges to focus on. So this one is just getting off the ground. We announced it a couple months ago, and it will come to fruition in the next few months as well. And so what we're trying to do with all of these things is to be something new. We're trying to take the power of the market, which we can access through our products, and harness that to bring public benefit, social good, and individuality and individual control into the internet itself. And so trying to combine the things that are so powerful about the internet industry and the product and the scale and the impact that's possible, and on the other hand, the heart and soul of Mozilla, which is about building a better internet. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mitchell. I think we have time for a few questions. Könnt gerne die Fragen auf Deutsch stellen und ich kann das übersetzen. So we can do questions in either language. So please come forward. I know we're standing in the way between lunch.
Yes.
Well, if people are making their way down, I had a question for you. Talking about the future as being an opportunity for openness and participation, what would you see right now as the greatest threat to getting to that future?
The greatest threat, well, there's many. I'll say there's many. I think the greatest threat is not seeing the possibility. This is something that we've learned over time. It's easy to see centralized. It's easy to see control. It's much harder to actually internalize and envision what the other possibilities are. So one is that. Second is that you know, there's a lot of forces lined up to want to control, both from governments, you know, to commercial entities. And then the third is just the scale. The scale of the internet is so huge that, you know, what am I? So Firefox currently, I don't know, maybe 450 million people use Firefox. So how is it that I count? You know, and we're only 30%. So 1 billion, 2 billion people. How do I actually count? And so having both the vision about an individual person counting and enough technical facility to combine them.
Any takers for the mic? There's also going, as Mitchell mentioned, there's going to be a few sessions run by Mozilla throughout the rest of the conference, so we can also have more interaction and dialogue there.
Oh, you know, I should say that the thing that I didn't mention in there is the question of identity. Like, for all of these things to work, some way there needs to be a way to identify myself, separate from anonymous, which is about not having one, but if you're having your own experience across many devices. And so that identity piece ranges from how do I just log into a site and identify myself, to much more elaborate questions of, well, how do I take the information I care about and attach it to myself, and how do I make it available to others? And so tomorrow our first workshop is about identity, and the person at Mozilla who's leading our identity efforts is here as well, and he'll be running that workshop. He's at Thunder, Thunder, on Twitter, if you want to ping him. And then at 5 o'clock we'll be running a workshop on journalism and the Knight and Mozilla relationship with journalists in general. So if you're interested in that, please do come by. And then at 6 o'clock, I think we have just a gathering. So. No questions?
Oh, there's, sorry.
Oh, cool.
Ja, also ich glaube, dass diese ganzen Übersetzungen total wichtig sind und dass das eine ganz große Sache ist, wie man die Welt zusammenbringt, weil Sprachbarrieren, glaube ich, sehr stark sind. Aber meine Frage ist, wie stellt man denn sicher, dass die Übersetzungen auch wirklich sicher sind, also dass das nicht irgendjemand anderes reinspammt? Also das ist ja gerade für den Journalismus sehr wichtig, dass man dem vertrauen kann, was da übersetzt wurde.
So the question was acknowledging the importance of translation and bringing down the language barrier. In the tools that was mentioned, is there any mechanism to ensure the security of the translation, which is important in the world of journalism, etc.?
So the mechanism for not just ensuring security, but the mechanism for allowing different people, how should I say this? Sorry. So that universal subtitles is highly modular. As I said, you can host your subtitles wherever you want. You can have them hosted elsewhere. You can host them on your own site. You can encourage an anonymous community, or you can set up a moderated community in which you vet the contributors. So the mechanism is not built into the core of universal subtitles. What is built in are the hooks where you say, this is how I hook in. And my community, the community that I'm trying to build, is not anonymous. And I know who you are, and maybe you have to earn your right to translate, or maybe we review afterwards, or maybe nothing gets published until it's been reviewed. So those are the things about an open system is, depending on what you want, you can have as much control as you want, or if speed and spontaneity and diversity are the most important things, you can opt for that as well.
Well, it looks like there's no more questions. Thank you so much again to
My
Mitchell.
pleasure.
Thanks
Thanks.
to you. We'll take a break now
Great.
and be
Cool.
back here on this stage at 2 p.m. talking about digital revolutions.